My name is Sheila Kijawan. Krishna.
What are you doing?
Krishna. You need to go study for AP United States history test, okay?
Okay, fine.
Okay, you haven't been getting 100%. I expect 100%, nothing less. Okay?
Mom, I promise. I'll study. I'll get 101%.
Okay.
All by tomorrow.
Okay.
Who needs a social life?
Okay, better go.
Wait, this isn't My Little Pony. Why can't I see the channel? What's going on?
I'm Ulysses S. Grant, leading the Union Army. We have infrastructure while the South is all farmy. Our population over 20 million strong. With me as leader, you can't go wrong. My parents named me after an ancient Greek hero. I'll make them proud, turn the whole South into zero.
Who? Ulysses S. Grant? No one wants to listen to this crazy man rant. My journals are far more talented than yours. After this, we'll make you bow on all sports. You're a lowlife, a drunkard, a pretender. Give me 90 days and I'll secure your surrender.
Please stop talking, you can't do anything right. Please, for the love of God, just get out of my sight. I take risks, I'll do anything to achieve victory. This war will be the most decisive in history. As a word of advice, you should ready your white flag. Look at you, old man, you can't even touch my swag.
Big words, no action, nor divided into factions. South stands united and we have one goal. This war will rid us of North control. This war you'll be fighting on our home ground. After we crush you there, we'll be going northbound.
Factions, we're more united than you'll ever be. Strong central government with a disciplined army. Our currency is trustworthy and stable. Just with that, we can turn around the whole table. The South suffers heavily from economic woes. This will be your fatal mistake. You're dealing your own death blow.
Tell me, brother, who suffered doing panics?
Your cotton's gonna get you nowhere.
Sure, cotton's king, we're bound to survive.
The Union will prevail.
The Confederacy will put you in jail.
What's going on? Another thunderstorm? Fourth time this week. Oh my gosh, what is this? I don't want to watch this.
Okay, so let's move on to our next hashtag Civil War hashtag from social media.
Alright, so from at Gideon Wells, Lincoln Secretary of the Navy, he shows a chart with the naval blockade around the South so that they couldn't trade with Britain. What do you think about that?
Well, I think this is just like, again, the North showing their dominance over the South, especially the naval blockade. And the naval blockade is very important because it prevented the South from using their cotton as like a central factor to their economy. So it pretty much just blocked the main factor to their economy.
Alright, so from at North Rules, he says, look, I got some new tinder for the furnace, honey. And he shows a picture of a Confederate States dollar. What do you think about that? That's pretty funny, right?
I think it's pretty funny because it's like basically saying that the Southern currency is useless because all they're using is to burn. They can't even buy anything with it. It's so inflated. And North is just kind of like rubbing their face like North rocks. You know, clearly it's just like some like supporter for the North.
So from at Sherry Berry, also known as Philip Henry Sheridan, Lincoln's a prestigious general in the Union Army, he says, if I owned Texas and hell, I would rent out Texas and live in hell.
So what does that mean?
So basically what I think it means is since the Confederacy was really in a bad place to live at the time and they were losing the war, he would rather be in hell than live in Texas.
So he's just saying that like the North is a better place to live than the South.
Alright, so another quote from Abe Lincoln. He says, you can have no conflict without yourselves being the aggressors. You have no oath registered in heaven to destroy the government, while I have the most solemn one to preserve, protect, and defend it.
Oh, is this like something he tweeted?
Yeah, so that was from his first inaugural address, and I guess he just wanted to rub in how he wasn't going to be like, he wanted to be like a peacemaker instead of like an aggressor.
So this shows that the North wanted to preserve the Union while the South was like the bad guys.
Yeah. So another tweet from at Robert E. Lee, he says, I'd rather die 1,000 deaths than surrender. What do you think about that?
So I think it just shows his motivation to win and like how passionate the South was towards their way of life because they saw the Civil War as a threat on their way of life rather than on slavery. So I think this caused them to maybe like fight more aggressively.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a wrap.
Did the channel just change again? Oh my gosh. Zeus, what are you doing? I'm trying to watch something here. Please stop.
I'm John Shaklila from Harvard University.
I'm Albert Stein from Yale University. This is a PBS Kids Show for small children.
Today we're going to be talking about the Civil War and the advantages and disadvantages of the North and South.
Okay, Dr. Shaklaika, could you start us off with some advantages that the North had?
We'll start off with industry since that was our #1 advantage. Industry helped goods and weapons get produced, and it helped those goods and weapons get to soldiers faster since there was more industry around the North. In comparison to the South, there was less industry because their economy was solely based around cotton and farming, but we effectively blocked this with our naval blockade because they tried getting the cotton out to Great Britain, but because we had the naval blockade, they couldn't do this, and Great Britain didn't support slavery, so they couldn't rely off Great Britain.
And you're talking about Great Britain not supporting slavery, and this was an action done by Abraham Lincoln, right, who decided that he would make the war about slavery and not about secession?
Yes.
Okay. And now let's talk about another major topic, I think, railroads. What do you think about that?
Railroads helped get around the weapons and goods. It helped circulation of goods and weapons compared to the South where they didn't have these railroads, or at least as much as the North.
Right, and they also help soldiers, get transported around faster. Okay. And what would you say about economy? Do you think that played a major role?
Definitely inflation, because the North had a lower amount of inflation compared to the South, which was about 9,000, if not just that.
Right, I'm hearing these stories that people in the South even burned their money that was so worthless.
Yeah, just to keep warm, or yeah.
Wow, that's pretty desperate.
Yeah.
And let's talk about population. So the North had more population than the South, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that, would you say that's an advantage of the North?
Yeah, because that helped get more troops compared to the South, whereas they relied more on the soldiers that got trained from the major colleges there.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. So Dr. Shaklaiko is just talking to us about the advantages of the North. So Professor Stein, do you have any comments about that for the advantages of the South?
Yes, the South had one major advantage, and that was the home field advantage.
Right, and for the home field advantage, what does that really mean?
Well, you see, they knew the territory, they've lived there, they've worked there, so they know the basic run out of the land. The North has to invade into the South, and so they're coming into unknown territory.
This is because the North was fighting to preserve their union while the South was fighting for, their way of life as they saw it, or secession.
Yeah, that's correct. The South just had a higher morale because they're defending their way of life, so they thought.
So the South, their reason for the war was, their way of life. They thought it was under attack, right?
Yes.
And what does that mean for the war compared to the North? So for the North, what were they fighting for? Why is that,
Well, the North was trying to preserve the Union, and the Southerners saw it as an attack on their way of life, and so they succeeded.
So you think they fought harder because of this?
Yes.
Okay. And I think another point worth noting, you can correct me on this, is military colleges. What do you think?
Well, yes, the South definitely had the military advantage. We had 7 out of the 8 military colleges, so we had the better trained generals and troops.
Right. And then do you think this helped the Southern troops fight more efficiently and effectively?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Wow, I actually learned a lot from that. I thought the Civil War was like a one-sided conflict with the North South, but it turns out each side had their advantages. It was more dynamic. The South was fighting to preserve their way of life. The North was fighting to preserve the Union. The North had severe economic advantages, while the South was fighting on their homeland. I think I'm actually pretty good for that test tomorrow. I'm gonna see what Fluttershy's doing on My Little Pony now.
Krishna, beta!
Oh my gosh,
Krishna! Krishna!
Oh, I'm studying!
Have you been studying?
Studying!
Krishna! Krishna! You're not studying.
Studying!
Go back to your room.
Studying!
Go back to your room. Go down.
Okay. Right now we have here a political cartoon and a short response question that we're about to walk you guys through.
Alright, so Michael, if you were given this picture and a short response question that has 3 parts, and part A being, explain the point of view reflected in the cartoon above regarding one of the following, and you have the 2 choices, economy and legislation, which one would you pick, just looking at this broadly?
Well, just looking at it, I would definitely choose economy because if we chose legislation, the only thing we go off of it is this tiny roll of paper here that says repudiation. And this basically means that the South is unable to pass bills. But this is only a tiny part of the whole political cartoon, so that would be very hard to find a specific thing in the picture, and then I guess it would just be overall more difficult to explain. So I'll definitely choose the easy route, which is economy. And
So, what is the point of view reflected just looking at it? Not like pointing out any small parts, but looking at it. What's the point of view that's reflected in it?
so generally, as you can see, the point of view is definitely just the Civil War and economy, as Abraham Lincoln is on one side with a bag of money and like a bunch of crates, and it says U.S. Treasury on it. So that represents the economy and its factor in the War of the North. And on the other side is Jefferson Davis with a bag of money that says CSA Treasury. So that's representing the economy of the South. So it's comparing the differences in economies between the North and the South.
Alright, so part B of the question is, explain how one element of the cartoon expresses the point of view you identified in part A.
So there's a lot of things other than just like one element. So I think I'll just point out all of them.
Okay.
And so right here we can see the differences between the size and the bags of money they're carrying. So Abraham Lincoln is carrying this massive bag of money that says U.S. Treasury on it, and it has $5 trillion labeled on it. And you can see it's much larger than the bag that Jefferson Davis is carrying. And Davis's bag, where it says CSA Treasury, the bag is even breaking and like leaking money out of it. So that symbolizes how weak the South government is compared to the North, and how much more money the North has. And another element we can point out is gold from California and gold bars in the North. So this is saying that the North had gold in these other states supporting them, especially the West, because California is in the West. And then whereas under the South, there's crates that say uncurrent money. So this represents the inflation in the South. So Nish, can you talk about inflation a bit?
Alright, so in the South, basically, as we mentioned in our video, the inflation was over 9,000%. Basically, their money was worthless. They couldn't buy anything with their money. So a lot of people resorted to using it as fire because to use it as to burning a fire. So
yeah,
so because they were really poor because their money was worth nothing.
Right, so that's definitely a major downfall for the South. So one thing I'll definitely talk about is this bag of money, these crates that say gold from California, and like how that contrasts to what Davis's and the South Side has with their bag of money and their crates.
Alright, so finally, as part C of the question, it says, explain how the point of view that you identified in part A led to the North's victory over the South in the Civil War.
So the economy definitely has a major impact on how the North won the Civil War, because since the North had so many more resources, they were able to replenish their supply of ammunition and keep their economy going. So economy wasn't really their weakness. So they're able to produce a lot more goods, which therefore helped them in the war. What do you say about it?
Yeah, so basically, as what you were saying, they had more money, and in wars today, and even back then, if you have more money, you have a larger advantage because you can buy more weapons and you can transport goods and weapons further. So let's just recap all this. So in part A, so to reflect the point of view from the economy, what would you say in a concise manner?
So economy, obviously, because looking at it, there's a lot more economy than legislation. So the point of these is to find the best way to do it. And the best way is to save time. And if you have so many examples of economy, why would you choose a small piece of information that took us a long time to find about legislation? So economy is definitely a more timely choice.
So then in the point of view of that, you'd basically just say how the North has more money, and then that might have led to the victory. So then in point B, you'd use these bags, right? To explain that.
Basically, like a couple things I would point out is the U.S. Treasury bag versus the CSA Treasury bag, plus the crates of gold bars versus the uncurrent money.
All right. So then to rally all this up, in part C, explain how the point of view you identified in part A led to the North's victory.
So basically, more money equals you can fund the war equals you win.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.